Chapter 7. Edward Ashford sat in the dim confines of the de Clare estate's small stone cell, the cold pressing against him like a physical weight. His wrists were raw where the ropes had been, though they had since been removed and replaced with a rusted iron cuff. The only light came from a thin slit in the wall, a small window that overlooked the blackened remains of the village in the distance. Smoke still curled into the sky like mournful spectres, and Edward's heart sank deeper into his chest. The door creaked open, spilling light into the gloom. Edward looked up, squinting against the sudden glare, and saw Sir Robert de Clare enter, his face shadowed with anger.
"Do you care to explain yourself, Mr. Ashford?"
Sir Robert's voice was low, each word clipped and seething. Edward straightened, the shackles on his wrists clinking softly.
"There is nothing to explain, sir."
"Nothing to explain."
Sir Robert's voice rose sharply.
"You interfered with Captain Hadley's men. You aided rebels. Do you understand what that means?"
"I understand what I saw,"
Edward replied firmly.
"Men burning homes, striking the innocent, under your command no less."
Sir Robert's face flushed a dark red.
"Mind your tongue, boy. You forget yourself. These Irish savages—"
"They are people!"
Edward snapped, his voice ringing off the stone walls.
"Families, children, human beings, not animals. How can you justify this?"
Sir Robert's expression hardened into something cold and impenetrable.
"You sound like one of them,"
he said, almost as though the words were a curse.
"Perhaps I was mistaken to bring you here. Your father will hear of this betrayal."
Edward's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. What good would it do to argue further with a man who had long decided what justice meant? Sir Robert stepped back toward the door, glancing over his shoulder.
"You will remain here until Captain Hadley decides your fate. If you're fortunate, you'll be sent back to England in disgrace. If not—"
He let the words hang in the air, a threat unspoken but understood.
"Pray for fortune, Ashford."
The door slammed shut, leaving Edward alone once more. He exhaled slowly, leaning his head against the cold wall. He had chosen this, chosen to act, to stand up for what he knew was right. But now he could not see a way forward. Hours passed, though they felt like days. Edward lost track of time in the oppressive silence, broken only by the occasional shuffle of guards outside the door. He thought of Brigid O'Donoghue, her strength, her fire, the look in her eyes when he had told her to run. Where is she now, he wondered, safe in the woods, or hunted by Hadley's men? The thought of her in danger brought a new resolve into Edward's chest. He could not rot away in this cell while her people suffered. There had to be a way out. As the last light of day faded into evening, Edward heard a sound, a faint tap against the window slit. He sat up sharply, his pulse quickening. Another tap followed, then a small stone clattered onto the floor. Edward scrambled to his feet, peering through the window. In the dying light, he saw her. Brigid. She stood half-hidden beneath the shadow of a gnarled tree, her face partially obscured by the hood of a dark cloak. Edward could barely make her out, but the flicker of determination in her eyes was unmistakable.
"Brigid!"
Edward hissed through the narrow opening.
"What are you doing here?"
She raised a finger to her lips.
"Quiet,"
she whispered.
"I've come to get you out."
Edward blinked, incredulous.
"How?"
Brigid glanced over her shoulder before speaking again.
"The guards change in an hour. There's a cart of supplies for the kitchen. I'll create a distraction and you'll slip into it. Wait for my signal."
Edward's heart raced.
"Why are you risking this?"
Brigid's gaze softened, though her voice remained steady.
"You helped us, Edward. You chose to stand with us when no one else would. I will not leave you here to be punished for it."
Before he could respond, Brigid disappeared into the growing darkness. leaving Edward with nothing but the faint echo of her words. True to her promise, the opportunity came an hour later. From the depths of the cell, Edward heard a shout outside the estate walls, followed by the distant clang of iron gates. The guards cursed and shuffled away, their footsteps growing fainter. Moments later, the creak of a wooden cart rolled into earshot. Edward moved quickly, his shackles loosened enough to allow him to slip his hands free. He pressed his ear to the door, waiting for the sound of approaching footsteps. When none came, he pushed the heavy door with all his strength, the hinges groaning in protest. To his relief, it opened. The corridor was empty. He darted out, keeping low as he made his way through the narrow stone passageways. Near the kitchen entrance, a cart loaded with sacks of grain sat unattended, exactly where Brigid had said it would be. Edward wasted no time, crawling beneath the burlap and pulling the fabric over him. Seconds later he heard voices, guards returning, their conversation filled with curses about damned Irish rebels. The cart lurched forward, and Edward held his breath as it trundled through the halls of the estate. Each jolt sent a spike of fear through him, but he remained still. At last the cart stopped. Edward heard a familiar voice. Brigid's.
That's the last of it,
she said, loud enough for the guards to hear.
I'll take it from here.
The guards muttered their assent and moved on. A moment later the burlap sack lifted, and Brigid's face appeared.
Hurry,
she whispered.
We haven't much time.
Edward climbed out, his legs stiff from the cramped space. Brigid grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the shadows at the edge of the estate grounds. Together they ran, through the darkness, past the tree line, and into the safety of the woods beyond. When they finally stopped to catch their breath, Edward turned to Brigid, his chest heaving.
You could have been caught,
he said, his voice filled with both gratitude and concern. Brigid shrugged, a small smile playing on her lips.
And yet here we are.
Edward stared at her, awe and admiration mingling in his gaze.
You risked everything to save me.
Brigid met his eyes, her expression serious.
This fight is not yours, Edward. You can still walk away.
Edward shook his head.
No, Brigid. It is my fight now. I've chosen my side.
For a long moment they stood in silence, the sound of the wind rustling through the trees around them. Finally Brigid nodded, as though accepting the unspoken promise in Edward's words.
Then we'll need to move quickly,
she said, glancing toward the horizon, where the faint glow of torches flickered in the distance.
Because they'll be coming for us.
Edward followed her gaze, his resolve hardening. He had crossed the line, and there was no turning back. Together they disappeared into the night, leaving behind the ashes of the past and stepping toward an uncertain but shared future.